This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
You are now about to start recording the shir. When you are finished, please hang up.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to learn for Gittel Bas Golda Ita, who's in the hospital. She should have a refuah shalema b'seich sheichel Yisrael. Also special for Leah Sarah Bas Rachel. They should have a refuah shalema. It's noteworthy that the Ten Commandments, which, everything in the Ten Commandments is selected very carefully. It's only 10 out of 613. You select 10, so everything is selected very carefully. So, for example, of the three vital human relationships, husband to a wife, a parent to a child, and a child to a parent, the only one that's mentioned is a child to a parent. It's an interesting thing. If you would ask which one is the most vital, it's a husband to a wife. Ishtei kigufa. It doesn't mention that. It doesn't mention a parent to a child either. The responsibility is of chinuch. But it mentions a child to a parent. Why is that the only relationship? And the answer is because that's the only relationship that's by everyone. People will not get married, unfortunately, and people will not have children. But everybody has a parent, and even people like Abaya, who didn't know their parent, but Zaya says there's a chiyuv of kibbud avim even more when the parent is in Shemayim. That's when they really need us, right? So there's always from a child to a parent, so that's why that's the only relationship that's chosen. So you see that everything is selected very carefully that made it into the Ten Commandments. Of all of the midos of man, and there are so many that are so important. For example, many of the great Gedolim have said that a person should shun a shidduch when they find out that the person is cheap. Cheapness is considered a tremendous detriment. Then there's anger. The Sefer Hasidim says if a shidduch is read and everything is good, but the person has an angry temperament, the Sefer Hasidim says drop it like a hot potato. Go look somewhere else. I mean, you're married to somebody that has a hot temperament, then you have to live with it. But if you have a choice, drop it like a hot potato. And yet, laziness is all kinds of midas. And yet the one midah that's discussed in the Ten Commandments is loisachmait, is envy and jealousy. Of all the midas, it's noteworthy. In the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which talks about those midos that literally drive a person off this world. Right? It could lead a person to an early grave. The first one that's mentioned is kinna. Hakina, taiva, v'akavet, maitzinas adam and aylam. Jealousy is mentioned first. It's very, very interesting. Now, we also know that we look at mankind and we see that from the beginning of time, jealousy haunted this world. The Nachash was jealous of Adam. He wanted Chava. Cain was jealous of Eva. We look around, we see it's haunted us from the beginning of time. And then, of course, the brothers, Yosef HaTzadik. Right? And then we find throughout the ages, we find the problem of kinna has haunted us throughout the ages. It's interesting, there's an Abarbanel. The Abarbanel says that when the brothers sinned with the sin of jealousy, that did not come from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It came from the family of the Imahos. That's what the Abarbanel says. But once the brothers practiced jealousy, there's a klei yakar this Klei Yakar is such a frightening Klei Yakar. The Klei Yakar says, it's such a scary Klei Yakar. Could I have a phone, please? I don't know why it keeps on calling me. Thank you. Give me a second. Let me see what he wants. Yeah, keep on calling me in middle share. What's the matter?
Oh, it's in the middle of you're in the middle of the share right now?
Yes, what's the matter?
Nothing.
There's a Klei Yakar. It's an unbelievable Klei Yakar. The Klei Yakar says, I want to say this Klei Yakar verbatim, because it's such a... says the Klei Yakar, Mei hayedua, shemidas hakina shahoisa ba'achei Yosef, the midah of jealousy that was with the brothers of Yosef, garmu lahem oisoi maisa, it generated that they should sell him. Ome'az, and from that moment, nishtarsha b'soicha midas hakina l'doiros, they became rooted in Klal Yisrael the trait of jealousy. And ume'az nishtarsha k'may shenemar ki kinas beischa achalasani, that's a pasuk in Tehillim. He kinas beis Yisrael, that's the jealousy found by Jews. Bein Yisrael b'chal adayros yosem b'chal ha'umos. Jealousy is found by Yidden more than the other nations. Klei Yakar. The Klei Yakar. And there's also an old sefer called the Mitam HaMelech that writes the same thing. Dover pella shemotza b'ksivas yad me'echad me'akadoshim. It's a peladik azak that I found from one of the kedoshim. Shemitam zeh yesh midas hakina eitzel b'nei Yisrael yoyser mimashe yesh eitzel umas ha'olam. Yan shenishtar sheba midas hakina me'avoiseyim. So it's a reverse ma'isa of a siman labana. Now, it's important for us to know this, because it's important for us, therefore, to put effort into trying to educate our children that it's wrong to be jealous. So it comes now to winter break. Why can't we go to Orlando? My neighbor is going to Orlando. I don't understand. Why can't we go away for Pesach to a fancy hotel? Our cousins are going away to a fancy hotel. I don't understand. Why is it that he has $250 Michael Jordan sneakers and I have $28 Walmart sneakers? It's not fair. It's not fair. So right away you stop and you say, okay, let's talk about this. What you're saying is called jealousy. It's called jealousy. Look what happened to Cain and Hevel because of jealousy. You have to train children about how dangerous jealousy is. And then, after that, you could talk to them and say, Hashem decides what's good for us. We say every morning a bracha that way. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam she'asa li kol tzarki. Hashem makes for me everything that I need. That's it. I have to tell children that. We have to work on it ourselves. It's a very, once it gets in, it says about kina, rekav atzamais kina. The rot of the bones is kina. The bones, you have to know, the beautiful pshat that they say. You see, the Gemara says, why is it that when a woman gets upset about something, it's harder to appease her than the man? Why is it that way? By the way, that's a fact. It's not always true. It's true by a lot of women that versus men, their counterparts, it's easier for a man to be appeased than a woman. So the Gemara says, because look from where they were created. Man was created from the earth. The earth is soft. A woman, it says, etzem me'atamai. It's created from a rib. A rib is hard. Right? A rib is hard, it's hard to appease. When a person is jealous, so that means that the person is not allowing himself to be appeased. That's from the bone. And therefore, even rekavat samay skina, it's the rot of the bone. Now we know we have stories throughout the ages about where they found graves that were hundreds of years old, and the entire skeletal makeup of the mace was still intact. And they said that the people weren't jealous. The bones rot from jealousy. Now the Maisa is the Minchas Elazar, the Munkacher Rebbe, Friedrich Munkacher Rebbe, has a sefer called Divrei Torah. In Madura Daled, in the fourth Madura, the Minchas Elazar writes that although if a person is not jealous, his bones don't rot, but his body will rot. But he says then there is a higher madrega where even the body doesn't rot. And he writes, he gives testimony. He gives testimony that when he was 13 years old, this is the Munkacher Rebbe, when he was 13 years old, they wanted to build a train, and they made the Jews clear the cemetery. And it was right near Munkach. And they brought down the Badats, the Bezdin Tzedek, to clear the graves. And they had two experiences they recorded, which are so remarkable. First, there was a matzeva where the whole matzeva spoke about a woman that she was an isha tznuah ad ma'od. She was very tzniistic, very modest. And they dug her up, and her whole body, over 100 years, her whole body was intact. Mamish, the flesh didn't rot. Then he says, there was another grave over there, near Monkatz, that it was a very old grave, and it said on the matzeva, tzaddik. Usually you don't write on the matzeva, tzaddik, right? It said on the matzeva, tzaddik, and the body was almost completely intact. And then he writes that in Prague, the great city of Prague, they wanted to widen the highway, and they had to clear graves, and there was a grave there that was 300 years old. And they opened the grave, and the body was completely intact. So he writes that you mamish see the Yad Hashem, because here there is a bunch of graves, and all the bodies are completely dust, mamish, grave dust. And here you have matzevas that say that the person is a tzaddik or a tznuah, and the bodies are completely intact. So you mamish see the Yad Hashem. I mean, and also, it also reminds us of how ugly it is, the idea of making autopsies. Who are we to touch a body? The Rebbeinu Shalom might decide that this body shouldn't be touched at all. Who are we to do this? It's a childhood memory of mine that when I was in yeshiva and Hadassah Hospital in Eretz Yisrael was making forced autopsies. So Moshe said we should leave the Beis Medrash, and there were numbers, and we should call up. I remember it was the president of Hadassah and different numbers, and we should just say, please stop forced autopsies. And I remember in those days a phone call was a quarter. And I remember all the pay phones in yeshiva were busy, and the bachman was sticking in quarters and just saying, please stop forced autopsies, and hanging up. That's all they said we should say. Please stop forced autopsies and hang up. I remember that we would leave Seder to do it. You have to know that a grave, very, very, very important, the significance we attach to burial. My Chametz guy, his wife died. He cremated her. He has her ashes on his next to his bed in an urn. He cremated her. We Yidden, we call a cemetery, we call it a Beis HaChaim. It's a place of life. Because everybody there is going to come back to life. There's a tal of Torah. Tal oros talecha, ain't orel Torah, k'nei mitzvah v'Torah. It's going to bring us back to life. That's why a kever, kever is the same letters as rekev, decomposition. But it's also the same letters as boker. It's a morning, it's a dawn of a new beginning. That's why when on a yard site, we give tikkun. Why are we giving tikkun? But to some people it looks bizarre. What do you mean? It says in Gemara Nedarim, Ki yom shemeis b'yaviv, Ki yom shemeis b'rabbi. It's a fast day. What are you serving tikkun for? So there's a famous pshat that Rabbi Yaakov says, ironically. He says the idea used to be that you made a siyum on a yard site. So you wanted to be able to eat, so you made a siyum. He says, now we make the party, we forget the siyum, we just make the party. That's what Yaakov Kamenetsky says. But the idea of a Yom Hilula, tikkun on a yard site, which by the way is very big, the Sefer Tamim Menhagim brings down, it's a famous thing that he brings down. If you look in the Tamim Menhagim is accepted all over the world. Tamim Menhagim, if you look down, he says that to one of the Gedolim came the neshama of his mother. He forgot her yahrzeit. It's a kasher from Ice how he forgot. Today, in those days, they didn't have sophisticated calendars like we have, and they didn't have, iPhones that ring, they didn't have any of those things. I mean, my iPhone, they call it a smartphone. It's not funny. My iPhone knows my schedule. Tuesday after the daf flashes up the address of Rabbi Landau. It's amazing what it does. When I was going up to the country, Wednesday night, it flashed up the address on Gamble Road in South Fallsburg. It's frightening. It's mamish frightening, but it's really a smartphone. It knows my schedule better than me. Right? They didn't have that in those days. But he brings down in the Tamim Menhagim that the neshama of the mother came and said, I'm meichel for the kaddish that you didn't say. And I'm meichel for the yahrzeit candle that you didn't light. So I'm even meichel the mishnayos that you didn't learn. But the tikkun that you didn't give, then I'm not meichel. That's what's brought down. That's what's brought down in the Tamim Menhagim. So there's all kinds of Torah on it, but it's a celebration of a birthday. Because when a person dies, they're born in the next world. And that's the word. It says that Haman was happy that in Adar Moshe Rabbeinu died. He didn't know that in Adar Moshe Rabbeinu was born. So the Chassam Sofer says that's not Pashup Pshat, because we only know that Moshe Rabbeinu died because we know that he was born, and a tzaddik is Mamalei Shnoisav. So it must be that he knew that he was born. So, but Haman's reasoning was, okay, he was born, but the bottom line is he died. Chassam Sofer says, Pshat is, he didn't realize that the day that he died is the day he was born in the next world. So the day that he died was not bad. Adarabah, that's the famous vort of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter once came to be Menachem Oval. Somebody had lost a child. So he told them that imagine twins in a mother's stomach. And what are they doing? The Gemara Nida says they're learning from a malach. So the two of them are learning b'chavrusa, geschmack. And all of a sudden, one chavrusa dies. Oh, my chavrusa died! He didn't realize his chavrusa went out to the real world. Went out to be born. Right? The same thing, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says, we don't realize that when a person leaves this world, they're going to the real world. They're going to the next world. Right? That's why Gedolei Yisrael, there's a famous Maisa with one of the Rebbes, I think it might have been the Zavilla Rebbe, that was by a daughter's chasana, and the daughter died. And he was going about like everything was normal. And they said, How is it possible? So he says, if the Tochter would have went to another city, I wouldn't be upset. He says, by me, the next world is as real as another city. She's there. She's in another city. She's in the Alam Emes. That's the way. Of course, we're not on that madrega, right? But we're not on that madrega. But that's, by the way, that's in terminology we say that the mace is nostalgic. He's removed. He's removed from this world. And he goes to the next world. It's nostalgic. It doesn't end. Chas v'shalom. Rishon could end, but not tzaddikim. I just want to come back for a second to the subject of jealousy. We have to always catch ourselves. When it says that we find it more by Yidden than by Goyim, so we have to catch ourselves. Am I looking enviously at what other people have? Also, we have to worry, since this is a metzius, it's a reality envy, we have to worry that we don't generate it in other people, because if we flaunt what we have, then we could make ourselves susceptible to the ayin hara. Because it says that's one of the things that are also moitzi asayid adam and olam, that's ayin hara, the same reason, right? Because Hashem says, I didn't give you extra to cause other people pain. If you're taking your extra and flaunting it and causing other people pain, Rahman al-Litzan, I'll take it away from you. We should be able to educate our children at a young age. Catch yourself. You want that watch because your friend has that watch? You're not supposed to do that. That's loisachmoid. We should be zaycha, that we should be spared from this ugly midah, and that merit Hashem should protect us and give us everything good.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.